I wasn't sure if I wanted to share this, but after thinking about it, I decided it might help to get this off my chest. So, a few weeks ago, I turned 18. Yeah, the big one. 8. I had it all planned out. A small party at home with my friends. Nothing crazy. Just pizza, some snacks, maybe some games or music. Something chill, just the way I like it. But let me tell you, things didn't go as I hoped. In fact, my birthday ended up being one of the worst days I've had in a long time, and I honestly feel like I need to vent about it. So buckle up, because this is kind of a long story. Let me start with a little context. I have a younger sister, Chloe, who's 16. She's 2 years younger than me, but somehow manages to feel like the center of the universe in our family. She's outgoing, super bubbly, and the kind of person who can talk her way into or out of anything. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but when you're her older sister, it can feel exhausting, to say the least. And then there's my mom. Ever since we lost my dad 3 years ago, it's like she and Chloe have this unbreakable bond. They do everything together, shopping, watching movies, going on these little girl trips. Meanwhile, I'm just there. Don't get me wrong, I know my mom loves me, but it's like she doesn't see me the same way she sees Chloe. Chloe gets all the attention, all the praise, and all the support. Me? I get told I'm the strong one, which is basically code for figure it out yourself. Not like this was the first time something like this happened. Chloe has always been the star of the family, especially after Dad passed away. Growing up, I didn't really notice the favoritism, if any. It felt like Dad balanced things out pretty well. Chloe and Mom were always closer. Mom called her her mini-me. But Dad made sure to spend time with me. He encouraged my love of art and books, and he never made me feel less than Chloe, even though we were so different. Losing him 3 years ago was like losing the one person who truly saw me. Since then, it's been all Chloe all the time. She's the kind of person who lights up a room, charismatic, funny, and good at getting people to like her. Meanwhile, I'm quieter and more introverted. I'm not the type to command attention, and honestly, I don't even want to. But that doesn't mean I enjoy being ignored, you know? Mom has this habit of acting like Chloe's life is the most important thing in the world. Every little drama she has becomes a family crisis. Like when Chloe failed a history test last year, Mom spent weeks tutoring her and even hired a private teacher to make sure she passed the next one. Meanwhile, I had to beg her for weeks just to get art supplies for a school project. She said something like, "You're creative, you'll figure it out." And that's the thing. She expects me to figure it out because I'm the strong one. It's exhausting. The favoritism became painfully obvious when Dad died. Chloe was devastated, of course, and Mom threw herself into making sure Chloe was okay. I understood at first. We were all grieving, and Chloe was just 14 at the time. But as time went on, it became clear that Mom wasn't just comforting Chloe. She was building this whole new life around her. They started going on these girl trips together, leaving me at home to watch the house. They'd come back with shopping bags and inside jokes, and I'd just sit there pretending I didn't care. This concert situation was just the latest example of that dynamic. When Chloe found out her favorite band was coming to town, she acted like it was a once-in-a-lifetime event. And maybe for her it was, but for me, it was just another reminder that my needs don't matter as much. Here's the kicker. Chloe didn't even try to hide how much she didn't care about my birthday. She spent the days leading up to it obsessing over the concert, what she was going to wear, which songs she hoped they'd play, and how close she'd get to the stage. Every time she talked about it, it felt like she was rubbing salt in the wound. I tried to tell myself it wasn't intentional, but honestly, I'm not so sure. Chloe has always been good at getting her way, and I think on some level she knows how much it bothers me when she takes up all the space. The morning of the concert, aka my birthday, I overheard her talking to Mom in the kitchen. She was laughing about how boring my plans sounded, and how lucky she was that Mom understood what was really important. I know I should have let it go, but hearing that broke something in me. I stormed into the kitchen and asked Mom how she could just forget about my birthday like that. She gave me this exasperated look and said, "We didn't forget, we'll celebrate later. Chloe's concert is a big deal. You're mature enough to understand, right?" That word, Mature felt like a slap in the face. I don't think I've ever hated being called mature as much as I did in that moment. It's like she was saying, "Your feelings don't matter because you're old enough to suck it up." And Chloe, of course, just stood there smirking like she'd won some kind of competition. I wanted to scream at both of them. I wanted to say, "What about me? What about what I want?" But I didn't. I just walked away. Because what was the point? They weren't going to listen. They never do. That evening, after they left for the concert, I sat in Dad's old recliner with one of his sweatshirts. It still smells like him, even after all this time. I don't know why, but holding on to it made me feel a little less alone. I thought about how things used to be when he was here, how he'd always make me feel special on my birthday, even if it was something small like baking a cake together or watching a movie. He had this way of making me feel like I mattered. I don't feel that way anymore. I tried distracting myself by watching TV, but I couldn't focus. My friends texted me asking how the party was going, and I didn't even know how to respond. I ended up turning off my phone and crying until I fell asleep. Looking back, I think that night was the breaking point for me. It wasn't just about the concert or my birthday. It was about years of being treated like an afterthought. I don't think I realized how much it had been building up until it all came crashing down. The morning after my birthday, I woke up feeling like a mess. My face was puffy from crying, my head was pounding, and honestly, I didn't even want to get out of bed. But then the doorbell rang. At first, I thought it was Mom and Chloe coming home early. I wasn't ready to deal with either of them, so I stayed in bed, hoping they'd just let themselves in. But the doorbell kept ringing. After the third time, I dragged myself out of bed and shuffled to the door. When I opened it, I couldn't believe who was standing there. It was Uncle Mark, my dad's younger brother. He was holding a duffel bag and wearing this look that was equal parts concern and determination. "Happy belated birthday, kiddo," he said, stepping inside like he belonged there. And honestly, it felt like he did. Uncle Mark and my dad were close, like really close. Growing up, he was around a lot. He'd come to family dinners, take us to the park, and sometimes even babysit when Mom and Dad had a date night. He was the fun uncle who never took himself too seriously. But after Dad passed away, I barely saw him. Mom kind of cut ties with Dad's side of the family. I never knew why, but I figured it was just too painful for her to be around them. Seeing him now out of the blue felt surreal. He put his bag down and gave me a once-over. "You look like you've had a rough couple of days," he said, not unkindly. I didn't know how to respond, so I just nodded. We sat down in the living room and he asked how I was doing. At first I tried to play it cool, saying something like, "I'm fine," but Uncle Mark wasn't buying it. He gave me this look that said, "Cut the crap." "I heard from a little birdie that yesterday didn't exactly go the way you wanted," he said. "I guess my grandparents, Dad's parents, must have told him about my birthday being canceled. They're the only ones on Dad's side I'm still in touch with, and I'd mentioned it to them during a phone call a few days before. That was all it took for the floodgates to open. I don't know what it was about him being there, but I just started talking. About how Mom and Chloe left me for a concert, how they've been treating me like an afterthought ever since Dad died, how I missed him so much it physically hurts sometimes. I didn't even realize I was crying until Uncle Mark handed me a tissue. He didn't interrupt or try to give me advice. He just let me talk. And when I was done, he sat back in his chair and said, "This is absolute bullshit, that made me laugh a little, even though I was still crying. Uncle Mark always had a way of cutting through the noise and saying exactly what he thought. "You don't deserve this," he said. "Your dad wouldn't have stood for it, and neither will I. Pack your bags, you're coming with me." I just stared at him, completely stunned. "What? I can't just leave. Mom would freak out. Let her freak out," he said. "She needs to wake up. You're her daughter, not some glorified babysitter for the house." I hesitated. As much as I wanted to leave, the thought of actually doing it felt scary. What if it made things worse? What if Mom cut me off completely? But Uncle Mark must have seen the doubt on my face, because he leaned forward and said, "Listen to me. You don't owe them anything, not after the way they've treated you. You deserve to be somewhere you're actually appreciated." That hit me hard. No one had ever said something like that to me before, not in those words anyway. For the first time in a long time, I felt like someone was on my side. So I did it. I went upstairs and packed a bag. I didn't take much, just some clothes, my sketchbook, and a few things that reminded me of Dad. When I came back downstairs, Uncle Mark was waiting with his duffel bag over his shoulder. "Ready?" he asked. I nodded, and just like that, we walked out the door. I don't know what's going to happen next. Uncle Mark says I can stay with him as long as I need to, but I know there's going to be fallout when Mom and Chloe come back and realize I'm gone. I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. Part of me is scared, but part of me feels free. For now, I'm just trying to take it one day at a time. I'll update again once I figure out where this is all headed. Thanks for reading and for all the support so far. It means more than you know. So, after I packed my bag and left with Uncle Mark, we didn't go straight to his place. Instead, we stopped at a nearby diner. He said he wanted to grab a bite to eat and let me decompress a little before dealing with the inevitable storm. I didn't realize how much I needed that until I was sitting in the booth, sipping a milkshake while he told me funny stories about him and my dad growing up. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, I felt like I could breathe. But eventually, the moment of calm had to end. Uncle Mark looked at me over his coffee and said, "All right, kiddo. Time to face the music." We headed back to my house, and when we pulled into the driveway, Mom and Chloe's car was already there. My stomach dropped. I could see the living room light on through the window, and it looked like Mom was pacing. Chloe was nowhere in sight, but I figured she was probably upstairs. Typical Uncle Mark parked the car and turned to me. "You don't have to say anything if you don't want to," he said. "I'll handle it." I nodded, too nervous to speak. My heart was pounding as we walked up to the door. Uncle Mark didn't even knock. He just opened it and strode inside like he owned the place. "Hey, big sis," he called out, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You got a minute?" Mom came rushing out of the kitchen, looking both confused and annoyed. "Mark, what are you doing here? And why?" Her eyes landed on me, and her expression shifted to something that looked like guilt. "What's going on?" Uncle Mark said, his voice sharp. "What's going on is that your daughter has been treated like crap for the past 3 years, and I'm done watching it happen." Mom's face turned red. "Excuse me? What are you talking about?" "Oh, come on," Uncle Mark snapped. "Don't play dumb. You left her alone on her 18th birthday so you could take Chloe to a concert. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, isn't it? You've been favoring Chloe for years, and you don't even see what it's doing to her." Mom looked like she wanted to argue, but she couldn't. Instead, she crossed her arms and said, "This isn't any of your business, Mark. It's my business when my niece is sitting at home crying because her mom and sister can't be bothered to care about her," he shot back. "Tom would be rolling in his grave if he knew how you've been treating her. That hit a nerve." Mom flinched, and for a second I thought she was going to yell at him, but instead she just said, "You don't know what it's been like. I've been doing my best. Raising 2 kids alone isn't easy. No one's saying it is," Uncle Mark said, his tone softening just a little. "But neglecting one of them while you pour all your energy into the other? That's not doing your best. That's playing favorites." By now, Chloe had come downstairs. She was leaning against the wall, scrolling on her phone like she couldn't care less. When Uncle Mark noticed her, he raised an eyebrow. "And you," he said, pointing at her. "You've been walking all over your sister for years and you know it." Chloe looked up from her phone, rolling her eyes. "Oh, please, she's just being dramatic." Uncle Mark laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Right, because being forgotten on your 18th birthday is dramatic." "Got it." Chloe didn't respond. She just went back to scrolling, which honestly hurt more than if she'd argued. It was like she didn't even think I was worth her time. Mom tried to steer the conversation back to her. "Look, Mark, I get that you're upset, but you don't understand the full picture. Then explain it to me," Uncle Mark said. "Explain why your full picture involves ignoring one of your kids and letting the other get away with murder." Mom opened her mouth, but no words came out. She looked at me then, and I could see the guilt in her eyes. For a split second, I thought she was going to apologize. But instead, she turned back to Uncle Mark and said, "I didn't realize she felt that way. I thought she was fine." "That's the problem," Uncle Mark said. You didn't realize. You didn't ask. You just assumed she'd be okay because she's the mature one, right? Well, she's not okay, and it's your job to fix that. At this point, I couldn't stay silent anymore. You didn't even text me yesterday, I said, my voice shaking. Not once. I spent my entire birthday alone and you didn't even care. Mom, S-face crumpled. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't know it was that bad. You didn't bother to find out, I said. You've been so focused on Chloe that you don't even see me anymore. There was a long silence after that. Mom looked like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. Chloe disappeared upstairs without a word, and Uncle Mark just stood there, arms crossed, waiting for her to respond. Finally, Mom said, "What do you want me to do?" Uncle Mark didn't miss a beat. For starters, let her come stay with me for a while. She needs a break from this house, and frankly, you need to figure out how to do better. Mom hesitated, but eventually she nodded. If that's what she wants, she said quietly. It is, I said. It's what I want. And just like that, it was decided. I grabbed the rest of my things and Uncle Mark and I left. Mom didn't try to stop me, and Chloe didn't even say goodbye. When we left my mom's house, we didn't talk much on the drive to Uncle Mark's place. I think he could tell I was emotionally drained. Instead, he let the radio fill the silence. He's got this old truck with a beat-up stereo, and he played one of those classic rock stations that Dad used to love. It was weirdly comforting, like a piece of Dad was still with us. A few nights ago, Uncle Mark and I were sitting on the porch after dinner. We've been doing this thing where we just hang out, talk about life, and try to piece everything together. He asked me casually, "So, have you decided which colleges you're applying to?" At first, I thought he was joking. I let out this awkward laugh and said, "I'm not applying to college." That made him pause. "Why not?" he asked, genuinely surprised. I shrugged and told him the truth. I don't have the money, and I don't want to take on a ton of debt. Mom always said we couldn't afford it. Uncle Mark looked at me like I just told him the sky was green. "Wait a second," he said. "You don't know about your college fund?" At that moment, I felt like the world stopped. "What college fund?" I asked, my voice shaky. He stared at me for a second, then rubbed his temples like he was trying to calm himself down. "Your dad set up a college fund for you when you were a baby. I remember because he wouldn't shut up about it. He was so proud of planning ahead for your future. Are you telling me you've never heard of it?" I shook my head, my stomach churning. If there was a college fund, why hadn't anyone told me? Why had Mom always said we didn't have money? Uncle Mark didn't waste any time. He got up, grabbed his laptop, and said, "Let's check this out right now." We spent the next hour trying to track down the account. Uncle Mark remembered enough details to get us started, and after some digging, we found it. Sure enough, there was an account in my name, just like he said. But when we looked at the balance, my heart sank. It was practically empty. I stared at the screen, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Uncle Mark scrolled through the transaction history, muttering curses under his breath. The withdrawals started shortly after Dad died. Small amounts at first, then larger ones over time. And they weren't for anything related to college. The money had been spent on clothes, trips, concert tickets, and God knows what else. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was right there. My dad had set this money aside for my future, and Mom had drained it. What the hell? Uncle Mark muttered, his face darkening. This was supposed to be for you. I didn't know what to say. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. All those times Mom told me we couldn't afford things, art supplies, extracurricular activities, even little things like new shoes. This was what she was doing instead. And all while Chloe's trust fund, set up by Dad's parents, sat untouched. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Chloe had always had the best of everything. Designer clothes, the latest gadgets, VIP tickets to concerts. It all made sense now. Mom hadn't been budgeting carefully or making sacrifices for both of us. She'd been using my college fund to bankroll Chloe's lifestyle. I turned to Uncle Mark and asked, how could she do this? Didn't she know what that money was for? He sighed and shook his head. She knew. Your dad made sure of it. He even made me promise to check in on it if anything ever happened to him. I guess I dropped the ball on that, and I'm sorry. It's not your fault, I said, even though I felt like crying. You didn't know. He put a hand on my shoulder and said, well, I know now, and I'm not letting this slide. After discovering what Mom did with my college fund, I decided I wasn't going to just sit back and let it slide. With Uncle Mark's help, I confronted her and things got intense. We found out about the drained college fund, and Uncle Mark encouraged me to stand up for myself. This isn't just about the money, he said. It's about making her take responsibility for what she did. At first, I didn't know if I had it in me to confront her. She's my mom, and despite everything, there's still a part of me that wants her approval. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just about me. Dad worked hard to give me a future, and she had no right to take that away. If I didn't stand up for myself now, I'd regret it forever. Uncle Mark helped me reach out to a lawyer, a friend of his who specializes in family law. We explained the situation, and she told us we had a strong case. If we could prove Mom misused the funds, which we could thanks to the transaction history, we'd be able to demand repayment or even take her to court. The idea of suing my own mother felt surreal, but at this point I was willing to do whatever it took to make things right. We arranged to meet Mom at Uncle Mark's house. I didn't tell her why, I just said we needed to talk. When she arrived, she looked nervous, which wasn't surprising. She'd been trying to call and text me for days, but I hadn't responded. The first thing she said when she walked in was, "I'm so sorry, honey. I never meant for it to get this bad." I didn't respond right away. Instead, I handed her the folder with all the documents, proof of the college fund, the transaction history, everything. She flipped through it, her face going pale. "This isn't just bad," I said, my voice shaking. "This is theft, Mom. You stole from me." "I didn't steal," she said quickly, looking up at me. I borrowed it. I always planned to pay it back." "With what?" I snapped. "You've had years to replace the money and you haven't. Meanwhile, Chloe's trust fund is sitting untouched." She opened her mouth to respond, but closed it again. She looked like she wanted to cry, but I wasn't in the mood to let her off the hook. "That money wasn't yours to touch," I said. "It was Dad's gift to me for my future, and you used it to spoil Chloe. She needed things." Mom started, but I cut her off. "She didn't need designer clothes or concert tickets," I said. "She didn't need any of the crap you spent that money on. You didn't care about me enough to protect what was mine." At that point, Uncle Mark stepped in. "This isn't just a family disagreement anymore," he said. "This is a legal issue. My name has every right to take you to court for this." Mom's eyes widened. "You wouldn't," she said, looking at me like I just threatened to set the house on fire. "I would," I said, "and I will unless you agree to make it right." With the lawyer present, we laid out our demands. I told Mom I wanted the full amount of the college fund returned. Since she obviously didn't have the money up front, we proposed a payment plan. Monthly payments until the entire balance was repaid. The lawyer drafted a formal agreement on the spot, and Mom looked at it like it was a death sentence. "I can't afford this," she said. "How am I supposed to make these payments?" "You should have thought about that before you spent the money," Uncle Mark said coldly. For a moment, I thought she was going to refuse, but then she sighed and said, "Fine, I'll do it." She signed the agreement with the lawyer as a witness, promising to pay me a set amount every month until the fund was fully restored. I thought I'd feel victorious, but honestly, I mostly felt tired. The confrontation had taken so much out of me emotionally that I didn't even know how to process it. Part of me was proud of myself for standing up to her, but another part of me felt heartbroken. This was my mom. She was supposed to protect me, not betray me. Uncle Mark tried to cheer me up afterward. "You did the right thing," he said. "Your dad would be proud of you." I hope he's right. I think about Dad a lot these days. How hard he worked to give me a future, how much he believed in me. It's still hard to accept that Mom didn't feel the same way, but at least now I'm taking steps to reclaim what's mine. Mom's first payment is due next month. I don't know if she'll follow through, but if she doesn't, the agreement is legally binding, and I'll have no problem taking her to court. I'm done letting her walk all over me. As for Chloe, she still doesn't know what happened. Or if she does, she hasn't said anything. Part of me wonders if she'll ever realize how much her privileged lifestyle cost me. But honestly, I don't care anymore. I'm done trying to make her or Mom understand. For now, I'm focusing on myself. I've been looking into colleges again, and with Uncle Mark's help, I feel like I might actually have a shot at making it work. It's not the path I thought I'd take, but it's mine. And that feels pretty good. Thanks again for reading and for all the support. I'll keep you updated if anything else happens, but for now, I'm just trying to move forward. If anyone has advice on dealing with family relationships after something like this, I'd love to hear it. Story 2. 9 years of fiancée Amelia left my life exactly 1 month ago. 9 years gone, exactly like that. We were both 33, living together, or so I believed. There was no great conflict or protracted drama. She gently sat me down one evening and dropped the bomb. I don't love you anymore. It felt like a gut check. I was blindsided. Yes, no relationship is ideal, but we were steady, weren't we? I backed her in all and loved her. I was good with her as she had chosen not to work 5 years ago. Loving her and knowing we were a team made me glad to look after her. She seemed absolutely serene, like terminating our 9-year relationship was no great deal, while I was reeling and trying to make sense of what she was saying. My head flew around. I questioned whether this was truly her desire and if there was anything I could do to make things right. I realized there was nothing more to say when she only nodded and murmured, "Yes, this is what I want." I wouldn't be asking her to remain. I advised her to pack some clothing and spend some time staying at her sister's. She wasn't happy about it. I wanted time to think, and couldn't do that with her in the house. "You're the one breaking up with me, Amelia, not the other way around," I reminded her, and requested my house key back. "Why do I have to leave? This is my home too," she objected. She was annoyed, but finally she turned it over. It was strange to see her pack and leave. 9 years apart, and she left in less than 1 hour. That evening, I simply sat in the living room fixating on the walls. Though the house seemed vacant, it was bursting with reminders of her wherever I turned. Her bathroom makeup, her clothing still in the closet, and the tiny decorations she insisted on purchasing were all throughout the house. That night, I hardly slept. It was as though she had left a piece of herself in every room. I kept going over our talk, trying to find the mistake. I had given her everything: love, encouragement, stability, and it still wasn't enough. The next morning I woke up to find my house felt far too large for only me. Though I wasn't ready, I realized I had to start deciding what to do next. The quiet smothers me. I saw her everywhere I turned. The wardrobe full of her clothing, the beloved knickknacks, even the cup she always drank morning coffee from. That afternoon she phoned, as though she were still there even though she wasn't. Though I nearly missed it, curiosity won out. She called it off yesterday after 9 years of marriage. For what purpose was one checking in? Trying to keep my voice calm, I questioned, "You're really sure about this?" She answered without delay, "This is what I want." I pushed down a lump in my throat. "Okay," I said. I emphasized that I would be withdrawing her from the car insurance, canceling her phone plan, and disconnecting our shared bank account should that be the case. Her tone remains infuriatingly nonchalant. It was not about spite, it was just pragmatic. "What? Why would you do that?" she questioned, abruptly defensive. "Because we're not together anymore," I said. She accused me of being petty and of attempting to punish her for breaking up with me. "Why would I keep paying for those things when you've decided to end the relationship?" Her comment stung, but I held my ground. "It's not petty," I answered. She didn't take it well. "It's reality. You can't expect me to keep taking care of you like I did when we were together. That's not how this runs." "I was being unjust," she insisted, leaving her with nothing. I told her that she made this choice, not mine. She decided to depart, and these were the fallout over the next 3 days. I started moving stuff about. I first phoned the insurance company to have her taken off the car policy. I then canceled her phone plan, which I paid for anyhow. At last, I visited the bank and canceled our joint account. Every action seemed as though I was reclaiming a bit of myself. It was about retrieving my life, not about punishing her. She clearly saw things differently, of course. She texted me a flurry accusing me of being callous and vengeful. "You're making me start from scratch," one message said. "I don't have anything now. How is that fair?" I said, not responding. In what way might I say? Through mutual friends, I discovered she was staying with her sister and struggling to fit her new reality. She was acting like I owed her anything, like it was my obligation to make sure she was okay even after she'd left me. She had not worked in 5 years. Hence, she lacked recent experience to support a resume. She seems to have applied to a few companies, but nobody contacted her back off. One evening, she gave me another call. This time, just until I get back on her feet. "Absolutely not," I said. "Why not? You have another car?" she yelled. "Because it's mine," I answered. "I paid for it, and I need it," she added, her voice shaking. "You're being so nasty," I remarked, attempting to keep cool. "You're leaving me with nothing. I thought you cared about me." "I cared for 9 years. I took care of you, supported you, and gave you everything you needed. But you made the decision to end that. You can't expect me to keep taking care of you when we're not together anymore." She hung up on me. By the end of the week, I'd cut all the strings. Once more, mine were the car, the phone plan, and the joint account. I sensed for the first time in years that I was in charge of my life. It was challenging. I still wanted to check on her and felt part of me still loved her. But I reminded myself of the truth every time I started to feel guilty. She picked this. Not me. She broke things off. That insight kept me from faltering. I was moving on. I was not being vengeful or petty. AmITheA texted me once more around 1 week following the breakup. She had to visit to gather the rest of her stuff. I consented, as I reasoned it would be preferable to let her finish it. To be honest, I wanted her belongings out of the clutter from the house a little more than required. She arrived the next evening with a suitcase. She passed by directly for the bedroom, hardly acknowledging me. Trying to give her space, I stayed in the living room but could hear her searching among the drawers, opening and closing closet doors, hangers clattering. I said, already feeling the tension mounting, "What are you doing with that?" She strolled into the living room carrying my laptop. "I'm taking it," she replied matter-of-factly. "I use it all the time anyhow." I found what I was hearing unbelievable. "No, you're not," I insisted. "That's mine. I paid for it. Just because you used it sometimes doesn't make it yours." She shot me a frustrated glance as if I were being irrational. "Are you serious right now? After everything, you're going to argue over a laptop?" "Yeah, I am," I said, "because it's mine." Her voice changed from frustrated to furious. She said, "Wow, pretty much," gripping the laptop closer. That's when I decided to look through her suitcase. She started screaming, accusing me of being nasty and petty, of trying to make her life harder. Just because you use something doesn't mean you get to take it when you leave. Trying to keep cool, I responded, "It's just a few things. You don't even need them." "That's not the point," I said. "The point is, they're not yours to take." I'd had enough at that moment. Her face crumpled as she began crying. "You can take your clothes, your makeup, and your personal stuff. But everything else in this house is mine. You didn't work for it, and you don't get to just walk away with whatever you want." She sobbed. "I can't believe how heartless you're being." I stood still. She started crying, saying, "I'm not being heartless. I'm just not letting you take things that don't belong to you." She said I was punishing her, attempting to make her miserable. I did not, however, back off. At last, I said to her, "You've got everything you came for. It's time for you to leave." That evening, she sent me a protracted, disorganized text. It was rife with the usual charges. I was punishing her for breaking up with me. I was being cruel. I was rendering her life impossible. I gave no thought to answering. Over the next 3 days, I started sorting through the house and collecting her remaining belongings. At this time, it seemed like she would twist whatever I said into something else to present herself as the victim. Just a few odds and ends she hadn't bothered to grab. There wasn't much left. I left everything in the garage's corner after boxing it all. Though I thought about texting her to come pick it up, really, I wanted to avoid dealing with her any longer. She could beg for it should she so wish it. Mutual friends started getting in touch, stating she'd been complaining about me to anyone who would listen. I wasn't going to hunt her down to return her stuff. She said I was this nasty, hateful ex who was working tirelessly to make her life terrible. Though it was annoying, I let it not really disturb me. People might believe anything they pleased. By the end of the week, I felt as though I had at last gotten my environment under control. I knew the truth, and that was sufficient for me. Once more, the house belonged to me, free from her belongings and presence. Though it still seemed a little hollow, I felt for the first time that I could begin to go on. A few days following the struggle over her bag, I felt as though things could at last calm down. Ready to go forward, I had stuffed the remainder of Amelia's belongings into a box. She wasn't done, though, and late one evening I answered her call against better knowledge. I reasoned perhaps she wanted to make plans to pick up the box or offer apologies for the altercation. Her voice trembled as she added, "I need help," sounding almost terrified. I stood motionless for a time, not sure what to say. "What kind of help?" I questioned warily. Her voice broke. "I can't find a job." I groaned, leaning back in my chair. "It's been so long and no one's calling me back. I've tried, but it's like I don't even know where to start." "I'm sorry to hear that, but I don't know what you want me to do about it." Her voice sharpened. "You could help me for starters. I gave up my career for you. The least you could do is help me get back on my feet." That phrase touched a nerve. Keeping my voice steady, "You didn't give up your career for me," I added. She started crying then, telling me how hard everything was and how much she was struggling. "You chose to stop working because you didn't want to anymore. I supported you because I loved you, but don't act like I forced you to quit." She answered, "I have nothing right now," through sobbing. Her sister was growing weary of her being there and was pressing her to find a job. "I'm sleeping on a couch. I have no money, and I don't even know how to pay for groceries. How is that fair?" I said, pausing carefully. Her tone grew hostile. "I'm sorry you're in this situation, but this isn't on me. You ended the relationship, and with that, you ended the financial support that came with it. I can't keep taking care of you when we're not together." "Wow, so that's it? 9 years together and you're just going to leave me to suffer?" "You made this choice," I stated decisively. "Not me." She hung up without saying another word. The books began to flood in once more throughout the following week. They were first emotional, laden with apologies and regrets. She claimed she missed me, that she had made a mistake, that she was finding it difficult to fit into life without me. Her tone changed, though, when I didn't answer. The communications grew acrimonious and accusatory. She labeled me selfish, callous, even nasty. She stated I was wrecking her life and punishing her for the breakup. It was difficult to read, but I pushed myself to be strong. Through mutual friends, I began to learn more about her situation. I knew that caving now would never cease. Her sister apparently had issued an ultimatum: either move out or get a job within a month. She was applying everywhere she could think of, but no one was phoning back. She lacked anything to put on a resume 5 years out from the workforce. I didn't feel bad for her when a buddy told me she had broken down at a group hangout, wailing about how she had destroyed her life and wishing she could go back to how things were before. She owned stability, affection, and a nice existence. She also tossed it all away. One evening I was at home and the doorbell rang. Not expecting anyone, I stopped before opening it. There she was, standing on my porch when I did. She was really ugly. Her hands shaking, she sat on the couch trying to gather herself. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered, her voice breaking, tears running down her face. I waited, giving her a chance to continue. "I made a mistake. I can't afford to live like this. I don't know what to do," she said. Her words hung in the air, but instead of feeling sorrow or longing, I just felt numb. "You don't love me," I replied suddenly. "I thought I could take this on my own, but I can't. I miss you. I miss us. I still love you," I answered. "You love the life I gave you. That's not the same thing." She shook her head, saying that she meant it, that she wanted to fix things and come back. "I can't help you," I said, standing. She implored me to think twice, stating she would do whatever it would take to right things. "You made your choice, and now you have to live with it." I was not intrigued, though. For 9 years, I had given her everything, and still it wasn't enough. It's time for you to leave. I wasn't going to let her have another chance to take advantage of me. She hesitated momentarily, her eyes begging. I felt a feeling of relief as the door closed behind her, though, as she got up and walked out since I wasn't altering my mind. I felt as though I had actually closed the door, both physically and symbolically, on that chapter of my life for the first time since the breakup. I knew it was absolutely over following that last encounter with AmITheA. She had begged, sobbed, and invented every excuse in the book, but none of it altered my deep-down knowledge. She missed the life I gave her. I felt free for the first time in many years. No more second-guessing myself, no more guilt. A few days later, I received a text from a mutual acquaintance. I felt as like a weight had been taken off my shoulders. I was not accountable for her longer. Her sister apparently had kicked her out at last. Her sister gave her no choice but to leave as she had missed her deadline to obtain a job and had been not contributing financially. After that, I wasn't sure where she went or really wanted to know. I heard she had secured a part-time work at a nearby cafe. Though hardly much, it was enough to keep her afloat. Staying in a small apartment, she was barely making ends meet. Her unhappy complaints about how difficult life was and how unfair everything had been told me by mutual acquaintances. The fact is, though, I felt nothing for her. She decided what to do. She chose to walk away from me, and she had to deal with the fallout. I started dating someone else about the same time. Natalie, her name is everything AmITheA wasn't. We got together through a common acquaintance, and initially I wasn't sure whether I was ready to date once more, but Natalie corrected me. She's intelligent, self-reliant, and diligent. She has a fantastic career in project management as well as her own place. She's quite able to stand on her own 2 feet. I'm not needed to look after her. Being with Natalie was rejuvenating. I was in a relationship where both partners shared equal contribution for the first time in years. You deserve better than that, she said, and for the first time, I really believed it. One evening, Natalie and I were having dinner when I received a call on my phone. My breakup with AmITheA startled her. AmITheA was delivering this message. She had figured out a fresh number to call me. The message was regretful, passionate, and long. She said she had made a mistake leaving me, that she was barely making ends meet, and that she couldn't find consistent employment. "Just until I get back on my feet," she said, closing the message. "Would you consider letting her move back in?" I showed Natalie, who wrinkled her eyebrows. "What are you going to do?" she queried. "Nothing," I answered. "I'm not even going to respond." And I didn't. A few days later, AmITheA dropped by my place without warning. When the doorbell rang, Natalie was right next to my side. Saying she would do whatever it took to mend things, she asked me to let her move back in. "You don't love me," I said, not feeling it either. She started crying, adamant that she meant it, that she wanted things right. "You love the life I gave you. That's not the same thing. I am sorry you are struggling, yet I have heard it all before." She stared at me like she couldn't believe what I was saying, but I didn't care. "You made your choice, and you have to live with it. You don't get to come back just because things didn't go as planned." She hesitated, her eyes flitting between me and Natalie. I had spent too long trying to take care of someone who never appreciated it. "It's time for you to leave." I stepped aside and held the door open. She turned and left without more word then. When the door closed, Natalie looked at me and grinned. She said, "I'm proud of you." And you know what? I felt good about me as well. I was at last putting myself first, for the first time in years, now concentrating on my future with Natalie. She has been a great source of encouragement. She has encouraged me to see my value in a manner I hadn't previously. Regarding AmITheA, I'm delighted about what's ahead. I'm happier right now than I have been in years. I have no idea what happened to her following that evening. I have no interest. I made mine. She made hers. And for the first time, I feel like I'm precisely where I'm intended to be. Final update. A few months after our last talk, I nearly forgot about AmITheA. Living with Natalie was going fantastic. We were on our way, planning ahead, and simply savoring a good, balanced relationship. I wasn't monitoring my ex, but one day a mutual friend called out of the blue with startling news. "You're not going to believe what happened," they said, practically laughing. Apparently, AmITheA had started dating someone else shortly after we split. Ethan, let's call him, was flashy. Brand clothes, luxury automobiles, and regular Instagram photos of him living it up at opulent hotels and restaurants. She must have felt she hit the jackpot, another man who could offer her the kind of life I had offered, perhaps even better. Except Ethan wasn't who he claimed to be. Everything first appeared to be flawless. He was bringing her to upscale events, showering her with presents, and introducing her to what she most likely considered to be a small, exclusive network of acquaintances. She was living what she considered to be a dream, but here's the hitch. Ethan was broke. The vehicles were leased, the parties paid for on credit, and the friends were a dubious collection of aspirational hipsters and hustlers. From what I heard, Ethan began asking AmITheA to help him out financially. Turns out Ethan was running on borrowed time and borrowed money. AmITheA had no idea. It began modestly, covering a meal here, gas paid for there. It soon became more intense nevertheless. Saying it would help them build a future together, he persuaded her to establish a credit card in her name. She fell for it. Not long after, things started to slide. Ethan's buddies began showing up more frequently, borrowing money, breaking on her couch, and treating her flat like a flophouse. She sought to match their lavish way of living, most likely believing it would pay off down the road. But Ethan began to vanish for days at a time. His bills kept mounting. One day he left and never returned. He ghosted her entirely, leaving her with maxed-out credit cards, unpaid bills, and some quite enraged knock-on-door visitors. Turns out those friends were the kind of individuals that give you money with strings attached, enormous ties, not just freeloaders. A mutual buddy who had stayed in touch with her informed me what occurred next. One evening, apparently, a few of these dubious guys showed up at her flat demanding loan repayment for some debt Ethan had acquired. She tried to clarify that although she knew nothing about it, they weren't buying it. She fretted, of course. They threatened her and warned her that failing to pay would have consequences. But just what could she do? She lacked the means. When she tried to phone Ethan, his number was disconnected. She even visited his last known residence and discovered he had left town. She was left to handle the problem on her own. When I learned about all of this, I won't lie, I felt a range of emotions. I felt awful for her at times. Nobody deserves to be duped or put in danger. But another side of me couldn't help but consider, this is what happens when you treat others as less than. She wanted someone to lead her simple life, take care of her so she wouldn't have to worry about anything or work. And rather than that, she ended up with someone who exploited her, exactly as she had done with me. But the karma continued. She sold much of her stuff as she had no way to pay off her bills. Pawned off for pennies, the luxury bags and outfits she used to flaunt were worth nothing. She tried to pick up extra shifts at the cafe where she worked, but her manager wasn't ready to let her work more hours. She finally settled into a small, run-down apartment in a terrible area of town. She began searching for a second job, but after not working for so many years, her resume was lacking. She even sought assistance from her relatives, but they were not in a position to be of any use to her. Saying she couldn't handle the continual drama longer, her sister, the one who had let her crash on the couch, had finally cut ties. The last straw? The credit card company sued her ultimately for the debt Ethan left behind. From what I heard, she's now working with some debt relief program, scraping together what little she can to pay off what she owes. From what I know, she tried to argue that it wasn't her fault, but legally it all fell on her. Meanwhile, I was flourishing. Every day, Natalie and I were getting closer. I could at last concentrate on my own objectives, free from the weight of someone else's baggage. Though I no longer felt compelled to monitor AmITheA, the sporadic updates from mutual friends helped me to remember how far I had come. She had taken decisions. Now she was coping with the consequences. As they say, karma does not miss.